Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, what do I have in store for you today? Quite a lot of interesting stuff, if Aurora will allow me to plunge right in. Barbara Van Riemsdyk says, "What Lady C says is so right. Had Meghan and Harry left the UK with good grace and taken a different approach, it could be they would be at the top of the popularity poll in America. I think almost certainly. If not for Meghan and Harry's machinations to devalue the royal family in the eyes of Americans and everybody else, that's what I'm saying, out of bitterness and the desire for revenge, they could now be riding the crest of a wave instead of trawling the bottom. I'm utterly convinced that Harry, already brimming over with resentment and ill feeling, allowed himself to be wound up by his manipulative wife to break all the rules of integrity and family loyalty to sell out his family. Harry bought Meghan's fantasy that they could make it big in America based solely on their royal status. Meghan's pathological need to exact revenge on anyone she perceives has offended or superseded her will be their undoing. Well, it already has been their undoing. And I've read this out because I think it's absolutely spot on and sound. It's basically, I more or less agree with the whole of this. There's little doubt in my mind that had Meghan not been such a nasty and a vengeful and a bitter and a vicious witch, spelt with a B, and had she not been a product of a world where victimhood will get you results that accomplishment won't, things would have been radically different. But you see, she was greedy, needy, and needed to move quickly, or so she thought. Because she didn't think, I've married this man and for the rest of my life I will be royal. She married this man and thought, I need to make bucks while I can. And I'm not going to have happen to me what happened to Fergie, Sarah York. She used Sarah York as an example of what to avoid. Marrying to the royal family, leave nicely, get chicken feed, spend the rest of your life scratching. She'd done all the scratching she intended to do, and doing it nicely. She'd had to charm her way into various positions, usually via men, but sometimes being the girly. Oh, we're such fun. We're just such fun. We're really girly, doing girly things. Serena and I do girly things. Violet and I do girly things. But the act was too much to maintain. And as soon as she achieved what she wanted, which was an eminent position of strength, my goodness, didn't that whip come out, and she decided she was going to show everybody who's the boss and who's the bully. Well, she has demonstrated to the world what sort of person she is. I don't think people can unsee what they have seen. The Emperor and Empress have been revealed through their own actions to not only have no new clothes, but no clothes at all that they are wearing. And their nakedness is not concealed, it is revealed in all its hideous ingloriousness. That's really what that old fairy tale meant. And we see it here and now with Harry and Meghan. And as I pointed out the other day, as soon as he's away from her, the charm is restored and the old likeable Harry resurfaces. Well, if it's an act that he should be enacting all the time. And if it's not an act, and that's his real personality, he ought to ask himself, why am I denigrating, belittling, humiliating, and effectively defaming myself with an inferior act just so I can keep in with an inferior creature? Casa 115 says, so, just read on Twitter someone did a Google Street View search and found Marital was coming out of a therapist's office specializing in marriage counseling the day of the wool coat and scarf. Well, I'm going to tell you something about Meghan and Harry, especially Meghan. You can't believe a thing she says or does. Do you not think that she deliberately dressed in fall clothes at the height of summer? The weather was in the mid-70s. She had on a scarf. She had on a woolen coat. She was bundled up against the chills. When it's 70-something degrees and everybody else would want to be in lightweight cotton, sleeveless or short-sleeved attire. So right there, you have to ask yourself, what's really going on? Then, of course, I gather the wedding and engagement rings were not on. Well, maybe she's pregnant again and her hands are swelling for the first time, because every other time she was pregnant, her hands and feet didn't swell. But maybe this time, now that she's batting 40-something, maybe her hands have swollen. But, you know, I don't want to be unkind, but I actually think Meghan has medical problems. Those legs are very evocative of legs that I have seen on people like my mother. Scrawny, skinny, shapeless, almost deformities. I do not believe that those are the legs of a healthy individual. Most people's legs have some shape. Hers are actually distressingly shapeless and mager, as they would say in Jamaica. So she was coming out of a marital therapist's office. Well, you see, that of course has everybody speculating again, doesn't it? Are they or aren't they? Now, my information is that the marriage is nowhere near as sound or as solid as some people would like to believe. But that doesn't mean it's in imminent danger of collapse. But if she's going for marital counselling and on her own, I used to go, not for marital counselling, but I used to go on my own to Al-Anon. But she's not going to Al-Anon, but maybe she's going for support, because maybe she finds some of Harry's practices insupportable. It's all speculative. And that's what they want. They want us to be in a position to speculate so that they will remain relevant. It's actually a very effective way of keeping yourself topical. It's not so effective, however, in making money, but we'll get to that in a little while. Jenny PK says, Lady C, what do you make of the rumour that Harry is set to lose his title of Duke of Sussex, and those titles are to be given to the Princess Royal and her lovely husband? Jenny PK, that's rubbish. The Princess Royal already has a title. If she were Duchess of Sussex in her own right, she might well be able to pass the title on to her son. But her husband would not be the Duke of Sussex. He would still be Sir Timothy Laurence, unless they upgrade him to something like an earldom or a dukedom. And the last dukedom was the Dukedom of Fife, which was about over a century ago. So I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. I hope that clears up the rumour. It's just a rumour. But I'm sure it's a rumour that people would like to see implemented. I've done that. Jennifer Girth says, Lady C, I'm sure you will soon be discussing Nutmeg's latest attention-seeking stunt. That is, wearing a $4 anti-stress patch. I would just like to draw your attention to the fact that the coat sleeve on her left arm is turned back to reveal it in all its glory. I saw the clip, my dear. I saw how Meghan was prancing around like a chicken with those mager leg and chicken foot in the parking lot. And really, she draws attention to her failings, not her attributes. That's not a good sign. Yes, she made absolutely sure that everybody knew how stressed she is, because you see, people with antisocial personalities always need sympathy. Often that goes along with people with narcissistic personalities as well. They also need sympathy. But the ones who really need the sympathy are the antisocials. It is a classical giveaway that you are dealing with somebody who is antisocial. And yes, I did notice it. Meghan intended everybody to notice it. She intended everybody to notice the whole thing. That's why she dressed in such a bizarre fashion. Do you think that she is not aware of the fact that had she dressed more ordinarily, the pictures might not have got the attention that they've got? She's canny. She's very canny. Too canny for her own good. Too clever by half is often stupid by whole. Nancy Fulciani says, Hello, Lady C. You have recently mentioned the vintage read, and I've also heard her speak highly of you on her show as well. I enjoy her latest book reviews, and this morning she reviewed Elizabeth by Gyles Brandreth and was brilliant. Apparently, the information came mostly from interviews with Prince Philip before he died. He stated that Queen Elizabeth II lived by the belief that one shouldn't talk about oneself, and that the most successful royal family members realize that their success is because of their special position, not because they themselves are wonderful. Harry and Meghan could certainly learn a thing or two from that pearl of wisdom, especially because their favourite topic of discussion is how wonderful they are, just because they are wonderful. Have a lovely weekend. Much love, Nancy. Prince Philip also made one or two other points. It's not about you. It's about what you do. Keep yourself out of it. Keep your feelings out of it. Just do what you're doing to the best of your ability. That is actually a very standard mode of behavior amongst people who believe in nobility, not nobility of rank, nobility of conduct. And there used to be a time when nobility of rank and nobility of conduct were supposed to go hand in hand. Nobility of conduct is a concept that seems to have died along with respect for history, respect for facts, and really respect for reality. But yes, Prince Philip was right, and so was the Queen. It's not about me, the person. It's about what I, the person occupying a position, can do. And I address the issues and behave in such a way that I use my position to enhance the subject at hand, whatever it is. In my own way, I do the same thing. And it's really not about that you're wonderful, because nobody is that wonderful. And quite frankly, if you are and you get on that trip, it's an ego trip. So that's the way to end up with egg on your face. But yes, Prince Philip was very clear about the fact that both he and the Queen didn't regard even the praise as being fully deserved by them. You know, in the 1950s and into the 1960s, Prince Philip and the Queen were one of the most glamorous couples on earth. They didn't think, oh, we're so glamorous that, we don't have to do our job now. We can just coast and the world is going to fall in our laps and everybody's going to think we're wonderful. And if anybody criticizes us for skiving off and not doing our job, we're going to say it's because you're jealous and it's because you don't understand. No, they didn't do any of that. They used to say that the praise wasn't really for them. It was for the position. And it did not behoove them to ever confuse the praise that they were getting by doing their job well as being personal. It's a way to prevent you from having a big head. Because, if you are in a position of any privilege, people can be very complimentary. And unless you're really very down to earth and sensible, if you start to believe all the nice things they say about you and regard them as signs of your specialness, you're really begging for problems. And Meghan, especially, even more than Harry, has always wanted to be special. She uses the word an awful lot, less so recently, now that she's become a little bit more exposed to the world of privilege. But before, everything was special, and special, everybody's special, special, special. That's a sign of narcissism in the budding. So I hope that answers the question. Snazzy Minx says, "Hi, Lady C. I think it very strange that the moment Harry goes away on his tour and is receiving publicity, Meghan is releasing press bites about what rubbish she has been up to or not. And then today she is papped, casually showing she is wearing a stress wristband and her oh so bland camel and white that she was forced to wear when she was a working royal. She was clearly on a marching outing. The point is, why is she now upstaging Harry, unless they really have separated? Because it doesn't make sense to say they are simply doing their own thing when Meghan is clearly trying to upstage her own husband. I would love to hear your thoughts on this." My dear, you need to understand that Meghan has always upstaged Harry. Meghan understands that she's the star of the show and Harry is the bit player. He's the supporting act. He's not the star of the show. She's the star of the show. When they're together, she barges in front of him. She walks in front of him. She yanks him back. She regulates him as if he's an automaton. And she is his wind-up keeper. And of course, as far as she's concerned, any publicity he gets is rarely for her. And any publicity she gets is rarely for her. Because they're a team, remember? Salt and pepper, black and white, armpit and deodorant. I could go on. I won't. The fact of the matter is, she is congenitally competitive, and so was his mother. Harry is used to a genuinely competitive woman who will at all times try to steal everybody else's thunder. And until such time as he can grow up enough and acknowledge that his mother was a human being with many virtues and a commensurate number of failings, and that he can love her notwithstanding the fact she wasn't perfect, he will not see her for what she is. He will deify her. And as long as he deifies her, what is he doing? He is setting up the situation where her failings are acceptable. Meghan is the same type. Most men would find that sort of conduct intolerable. Charles certainly did with Diana. Hashnat Khan didn't find it acceptable either. She and Dodi were too early in their relationship to know whether he would have found it objectionable. I suspect not, because Dodi understood that his place in life was to be number two. He was to be the enabler. He was to be the charmer. He was to be the loving guy. He was supposed to do what Daddy wanted. And since Daddy wanted Diana, Princess of Wales, as his daughter-in-law, Dodi was going to oblige. And also, you say that it's a marching exercise. Isn't it extraordinary that to go to a marriage counsellor, she not only bundles up in a Max Mara wool coat that is $1,650, even though it's 70-something degrees, but she uses her new calm stretch patch on her left wrist. Oh, so stressed. The yoga clearly isn't working anymore. Poor Megsy baby. Evidently, the patches cost $80 for a pack of 20, and they're said to provide a resonance and frequencies as well as a sensation of calmness. Well, unless they're drugs, they're rubbish. So, if they're rubbish, they're selling you nonsense. And if they aren't rubbish, they're drugs. And why is a supposedly healthy woman stepping out with drugs, considering the amount of drug speculation about her and her husband and her mother? According to them, she had on a pair of white capri pants held up by a $450 Givenchy belt, a $1,225 Hermes Rayurdete shawl, and a $1,380 pair of Chanel goatskin cap-toe slingbacks, as well as a Goya handbag worth $1,650. The only way you're going to know I'm classy is when I spend a whole heap of money and you know what I've spent. That's real class. God forbid that I should ever wear anything that can't be monetized and an accurate value put on it. No, there's no such thing as old-fashioned classiness for me. I like newfangled classiness. It's called tackiness. J. MacD says, "Hi, Lady C. Is it my imagination, or always has been, and Nacho, to put it nicely, overly familiar with each other? I know what you're getting at, and other people have made the same point. No, I don't think there is anything untoward or suggestive of two men having a close, affectionate, with some physical involvement sort of relationship. You know, where they slap each other's backs, and everything doesn't have to be unsavory. And I honestly think that men are perfectly capable of affectionate relationships with other men without it transcending in a way that it would become something rather more suggestive, shall I say, since this is YouTube. I think there's absolutely nothing untoward. I think it's a very nice, healthy, positive sign that both of them have such a nice masculine relationship. True men who have no tendencies in a particular way can and should express a degree of affection. I think the ones who need to be more nervous are those who might be hiding something from themselves or everybody else. But otherwise, no, I really see nothing wrong with it. Gwenda Darcy says, Christ, if she makes sure she's photographed at a car park, then she would have made sure she was photographed if she'd been at the concert. That's the Taylor Swift concert. Their personalities are racked by drugs, nothing to do with breeding. She definitely had mental health problems as a child, quite clearly a spoilt brat. But then, if your mother buggers off and dumps you, it's not nice. Yet, that thing is the one she is with, clearly says it all, and see the similarities in each other. Well, that's nice and acerbic and to the point. And yes, I know an awful lot of people have said that it's very peculiar that Meghan, for all her claims of having been at the Taylor Swift concert, was not, and it shows to what extent she would be prepared to humiliate herself for publicity, for whether she attended it or not. She was definitely not there as a VIP, and if she didn't attend it, she's still got the publicity. And if she attended it, she's got the publicity. Well, who would have said she was at it? No photographs. Nobody has taken a photograph of her. Where did this story emanate? Aurora. Where did this story emanate? Meghan Markle? Oh, Aurora, Motty is so stupid. Oh, I tell you, Motty just needs to have another pig flying. Just stupid. And you mentioned Doria buggers off and dumps you if it's not nice. Well, let me put it this way. Doria was absent from Meghan's life from the age of 12 for a considerable period of time. Thomas Markle is too decent a man to reveal in adverse times the knowledge he possesses and acquired during more positive times. However, I have been sent, and I have been sent something by somebody who has known Meghan for a very long time and who has reason to believe that a certain bit of information floating around on the internet could have merit, because according to this information, Doria Ragland, and I hasten to add, by the way, for legal reasons, that this might not be the same Doria Ragland as Meghan's mother. This could be a different Doria Ragland. So, if the information is sound, which the suggestion I have received is that it is sound, it is of a woman by the name of Doria Ragland, who was before the Riverside County Court of California. She received a sentence for fraud, and the case ID number was MS79453DR. It's because this might not be the same Doria Ragland as Meghan's mother, we need to be very careful what we suppose. It could also be a con, but I am assured it's most likely not a con, and that there was somebody who had a spot of bother with that name and with that case number. But as I said, it doesn't have to be our Doria Ragland. However, because our Doria Ragland is now effectively a public figure, the net has been scrubbed clean. So you would have to go and get the county court libraries are the ones that should have a record of this, evidently, not the internet. Now, as I say, I make the point, this could easily not be our Doria Ragland. So I'm not accusing our Doria Ragland of going anywhere or having had any extended stays forced upon her in any circumstances. I need to emphasize that for legal reasons. What I am saying, though, is that there is the suggestion that Doria was absent from her daughter's life for many years and played little or no part of any consequences in her daughter's life. And that I know to be true, because Gigi Perot told me that she never saw Doria at Immaculate Heart even once until the graduation. Of course, there could be alternative explanations. It could be imitation of life. Meghan didn't want a mother of obvious colour when she could pass for white. That could be a reason why Doria kept away. So I think we need to be careful what we assert and what we believe. But clearly, there is a mystery that Thomas Markle is too much of a gentleman to clear up. Ruth Brocato says, "Hi Lady C, I am reading and loving your book about the Queen Mother. It is making me wonder if the surrogacy illegitimate issues that surrounded her birth might be the reason for the Harkles believing that they could hide their own surrogacy situation, acknowledging that this may or may not be the case, of course, as we don't know this to be definitively true. I would love to hear your thoughts on this." I don't know whether the Duke of Windsor's story that, and not only the Duke of Windsor, incidentally, Dr. Ailes, who was Lord Strathmore's doctor. So it wasn't only the Duke of Windsor, it was the doctor involved as well. But I don't know to what extent one would place reliance on that. Certainly something happened, and certainly the whole situation was highly irregular. But if we go off what the Duke of Windsor and Dr. Ailes said about both Elizabeth and David's births, it was an early form of surrogacy. It was extremely successful. Lady Strathmore absolutely adored those two children. She actually loved them more than the children she had given birth to. Elizabeth was by far and away her favourite child, followed by David. So, and I'm here to tell you, if you have adopted children, I don't think you can love anything you gave birth to more than you love your adopted children. I speak from experience on that subject. But Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon was the daughter of an aristocrat. She wasn't ever going to be able to accede to a throne, nor was she ever going to be able to succeed to a title. So, I mean, a peerage, I need to make the distinction, because, of course, by being declared the legitimate daughter of Lord and Lady Glamis, as Lord and Lady Strathmore were at the time of her birth, she was automatically made the Honourable Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, and when Lord Glamis succeeded to the Earldom of Strathmore, she became Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. But there were no matters of state there. She could have been legitimate, illegitimate. It was a purely personal thing. There are interests beyond the personal when you're dealing with a throne. And although I am not saying that the rumours regarding the surrogacy of Archie and Lilibet have actual merit, and I need to make that distinction for legal reasons. If there was a surrogacy situation involved, this would have national and international consequences that went way beyond the personal, because you would be in effect foisting an illegitimate child into the line of succession where it had no right to be in the line of succession. So, but I suppose if they have heard of these stories and they were inclined to use Elizabeth's birth as a template for that would give them permission to do what would otherwise be unthinkable, one would hope that they would have realized that there were so many significant differences that it was totally unacceptable to do it. This is all highly speculative, and I am dealing with it because of the endless speculation that in large measure arises out of Meghan and Harry's conduct. And they can't have it both ways. They cannot expect, on the one hand, that they can behave in bizarre ways and we notice it and never comment. So I have addressed it, but I'm only addressing it as a speculation that for legal reasons at this point one could not say is anything but speculative, and no assertion is being made as to any reality. Let's put it that way. Sharon C. says, "Dear Lady C, fabulous as always." Thank you. My statement is rather tech and marketing related, so maybe not your thing. But I keep seeing people say to me, oh, you hate the Sussexes, but you give them more attention and clicks, which is supporting them anyway. What these people fail to understand, and quite frankly, many people, even in marketing, seem to fail to understand, is that clicks through to websites, that is traffic, that do not lead to sales, that is conversion, are not a success. And that even if we all click through and look at what Me Again wears, etc., it's not supporting the company because we're not spending money there. It looks like support because it inflates their traffic, but as it does nothing for sales, it's actually worthless to them. And we all know not all publicity is good, not all traffic is good, and that's why it's actually no problem whatsoever to give the market attention if you're not actually buying what they're selling. It seems odd people think that the slightest bit of attention is going to somehow translate to financial success, when that's not always the case. As my husband is at the director's level in international marketing, I've seen lots of heavy traffic companies fail because the interest did not translate into sales. And I have read this out, Sharon C., because it's absolutely true. It dovetails with my observations generally, and it also applies, I've got to tell you, to publicity. You know, my former publisher in England, he's dead now, Gary Pulsifer, he was a wonderful man. Gary believed in publicity and that publicity would convert into sales. And I used to say to him, Gary, publicity doesn't necessarily convert into sales. Only a certain form of publicity converts into sales. He never agreed. He spent a shed load of money on sending out books to all sorts of people, free books, free this, free that, stimulating interest, getting the chatter going. I'm not sure much of it ever converted into actual sales. And yeah, it's useful to know that we can actually be involved on the periphery with subjects that are of interest, but that ultimately we are not actually enabling certain people in their destructive attitudes and habits. And so I've read this out for that reason, because the Harry and Meghan saga, ongoing that it is a lesson for the age in morality, in disastrous choices, in how treachery gets you nowhere, but decency gets you somewhere, and loyalty gets you virtually everywhere. It's a wonderful morality tale. And it's lovely to know that it's not converting into dollars and cents for them. And of course, the Netflixes and Spotifys of this world made the mistake of thinking, because there's a lot of chatter and a lot of traffic, that it would convert into a lot of cash. Well, Spotify has dumped them. Netflix has them in the last chance saloon, I'm assured, trying to come up with something that will retrieve the investment and make them some money. And they might succeed, because if the marriage breaks up, I think Meghan's going to be a lot more valuable a commodity divorced than she is with Harry. I mean, what are her alternatives? Think about it. I mean, she's going to teach us to be decent people when she won't even speak to her father. She's going to teach us to be compassionate when she and Harry destroyed the last days of Prince Philip and the Queen's lives. What's she going to teach us? Elegance? I mean, she's as elegant as a rat running out of a drain pipe. I mean, she's a mess. And with the passage of time, she actually is becoming really rather very off-putting. I mean, when I looked at that photograph of her, or those photographs, I should say, of her in that woolen coat in 70-something degree weather, with the scarf and the white capri pants and those sticks that don't even pass for legs. I mean, shapeless matchsticks. I mean, the only other person I've seen such shapeless matchsticks on was my mother. And my mother had very good legs until the alcohol started to eat into her system. And at that point, oh no, there's someone else, another friend of mine who died of alcoholism. She also had the same matchstick legs. Because alcohol does wither your legs. If you're a woman, don't ask me why. But maybe Megsy Baby should be laying off the booze. Oh dear, oh dear. Maybe she'd be laying off other things as well. Like, I think actually if Aurora could get me a Coke so I can drink it, that's because I think Megsy Baby should be laying off the Coke, because I don't think it's doing her any good. But then, you know what they say? Too much Diet Coke is not good for you. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in and take good care. And if you've really enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and Godspeed.